fly looks like it's gone.
How long do we have?
Oh no, I saved it. I'll be right back. I was gonna say when you gave me the tape. I just went camping with.
No.
How was that? It was great.
I don't know.
How was seeing
Welcome to Truckee Talks. When our show debuted a little over 1 year ago, the topic was AIDS and sexually transmitted diseases. In that time, since new information and new statistics have come out, one thing remains clear: the need for AIDS prevention and AIDS awareness in our community has not diminished any. Here to discuss AIDS and AIDS awareness on Truckee Talks today is Kate Oldberg. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Kate, your role is a peer education coordinator.
That's right.
Tell me about that. How does that work?
Well, we have a program set up at the high schools, and at North Tahoe High and at Truckee High. And what's happened in the last couple of years is we've gotten groups of students that are interested in educating the other students in the school. They do that through assemblies. We go into the classrooms and talk. And this year we received a grant from the Rural Health HIV Education Program in order to have a little more money to fund this program. We have an official name, STAGE, Students Teaching AIDS General Education.
And so by that, the acronym for STAGE and peer education, I'm hearing that there are students involved in this as well.
That's right. It's pretty much a student-driven program.
Okay.
My role is just to help them figure out what they want to do and help them facilitate that
Getting
in
the
school.
message out to other
Getting
students.
the message out,
How did
exactly.
you become involved with this, Kate?
I became involved with the whole program because a good friend of mine died from AIDS 2.5 years ago. And at that time I realized that there was just not much going on in the community as far as education. And my friends were asking me, you know, aren't you afraid to go to the hospital and visit him? All these questions. So we decided to go to the high school and asked if we could put a program on at the high school to make the students aware, because it just seemed that that wasn't happening there.
How was that received by the students? I know some of what I run across in our community isn't so much closed-minded as it is just lack of information. People still think that you can get AIDS or HIV through casual contact. And how was that received at the school when you went to visit?
The students are so receptive. They want the information, and they want it given to them in a way that they can understand it, which is why the peer education works so well, because they can, you know, they can pass the information on to each other in terms that they all can understand, and it becomes a real thing instead of just another prevention program.
It's not so abstract. It's information they can
Right.
really use. How many students do you have involved in the program up here?
Altogether, there's, on a good day, 30.
And on a bad day?
Right. There is probably about 10 at each school that are the core group that participate in all the activities, and they're great.
Well, talk to me a little bit about what the activities are. I know one of the things that we're doing on the show in just a few minutes is a skit and a song that the kids have developed. But aside from that, what kinds of activities would you expect your peer trainers or peer students to be involved in?
Well, every year at each school we've tried to do an assembly so that the assembly goes to the entire student body of the school. And pretty much the students are the ones that put that on. They decide, you know, the content of it, how to get the message across. We also have class by class. We have HIV positive speakers come in along with an AIDS educator, and then the students are there too. And they either do a game in front of the class or something to keep them interested and to pass out the information, and also so that the students that are in the class will know that these students have the information and they can ask them on a one-on-one basis.
Which I would think for many students may be more comfortable. They may not want to raise their hand in a group environment, but I
Right.
would think it would be very beneficial to have a student that they could go to in confidence. And I'm assuming that this is a confidential program. If a student wanted to talk with a student coordinator or peer coordinator, they could do that in confidence.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit. I've been having fun. Prior to the taping of the show, we got to watch the rehearsals for a skit and a song that the students put together. Tell me a little bit about that before we go to introduce that.
Well, all the student coordinators and the participants in stage have had to have a certain amount of training, of course, so that they know. I mean, they are one of the most well-educated groups in our community about AIDS. So with that training, in conjunction with that training, we also did some theater skills and presentation skills for them. So they've put out a lot of their own time, completely volunteer, to get these skills. We also had a group come up named Cocapelli, and they came up through the grant process and helped the students in Truckee write a song, which is the song that they will be performing. They also helped us with the skit that we were going to be presenting here from the kids from North Tahoe High, and the kids from Truckee are helping out in that too. Okay. And they put some tapes together, and it's been a fun process and a very worthwhile one.
And the kids have really been involved in this from beginning to end.
Oh yeah, it's their thing. Like I said, the adults that are involved in it are merely there to say, okay, let's meet today.
The facilitators.
You know? Right.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Kate, we'll be coming back later on the show and asking you some more questions. But without further ado, I would like to go to the first of the two presentations that the students have put together, which is a skit.
By all standards, Joe is a typical high school student. He plays football, basketball, and baseball. He's a man for all seasons. And, like many typical high school students, every now and then he'll go out and get wasted. And he'll do things he doesn't remember.
Oh, Joe.
Who are you?
Which puts him at risk of contracting HIV.
Joe? No way.
Wait, Joe, if you engage in high-risk behavior, get tested. What you don't know could kill you.
Go, Joe, go.
Call 1-800-367-2437 for more information.
Well, that brings the message home in a very powerful way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing to me how many people, young but especially I think older, who don't necessarily have the benefit of the education in their high school years, who really think they're impervious to this, who for some reason
Scary.
think it can't happen to them.
That's a big one.
Okay, well the next presentation we have from the students is a song, and without further ado, we'll go to that.
Did you know HIV don't know if you're a man or a lady? Did you know HIV don't care if you are old or a baby? AIDS is no man's fool. Oh, AIDS is no man's fool. Did you know HIV don't know 3,000 women infected daily? Did you know HIV don't care? Kills 500 women daily. AIDS is no man's fool. You learn something new each day. Oh, AIDS is no man's fool. You learn something new each day. It was 1983. They first discovered HIV. Listen up before it's too late. HIV don't each day. Whoa, AIDS isn't no man's fault. You learn something new each day. If you think HIV cannot infect you, listen up, cause I'm here to correct you. Don't share a needle for tattoos or injection. When you connect, do not neglect your protection. AIDS is no man's fault. Learn something new each day. AIDS is no man's fault. Learn something new each day. Did you know HIV don't know if you're a man or a lady? Did you know HIV don't care if you are old or a baby? AIDS is no man's fault. Learn something new each day. AIDS is no man's fault. Learn something new each day. Whoa, AIDS is no man's fault. Learn something new each day. AIDS, no man's fault.
All right. A good song, but it really gets the message across. It's important that people understand.
It's a great song.
Everybody gets it. Everybody is susceptible. Okay. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Tomiko Aya and a more discussion of AIDS. And Kate, as we wrap up this session, I'd just like to ask you if there's anything parents would like to know about getting their kids involved in learning more about this, getting them involved with the peer counseling. How do they make contact with you or your group stage?
Well, they can do it through the school, through the counselors at the schools. And if they want to know any more information about it at all, that's pretty much who they would talk to, is the counselor at each of the sites. And they would have the information, and they would be able to pass it on to me or whoever else is involved in the group. We really encourage students to join it if they want to join the group. Everybody's welcome.
Okay. All right. Thank you for joining us, Kate. We will be back in just a minute with more discussion of AIDS. Thank you for joining us here. Welcome back to Truckee Talks. We're here today talking about AIDS and AIDS awareness in our community. Tomiko, welcome. I'd like to introduce Tomiko Aya. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tomiko is with the HIV Community Action Network, and you'll be here for the remainder of the show, and I've got a lot of questions for you, Tomiko. But first, if you would, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you're involved with the community.
Well, the HIV Community Action Network is based here in Truckee. However, it serves both Placer and Nevada counties, and it's funded by both counties. However, we are a nonprofit organization. Basically, we asked for the monies to come up the hill so that we could really provide the education and prevention work around the lake on the North Shore, which has been problematic before because most of the people were coming from Auburn and Nevada City before to provide the services up here.
So now we actually have some people based in our community that are
Right.
providing the services. That's good to know. And what is it that you're involved with the Community Action Network?
Well, we are really focusing on providing prevention education to teens, and so I've been pretty involved with Kate and the kids in terms of doing presentations in all the schools, including the alternative schools, doing some work with the Latino community and trying to get some involvement with peer educators there. Just beginning to try to see what we can do with men who have sex with men and injection drug users, who are still the highest number of folks who are getting infected up here on the Hill.
Okay. We'll be talking a little bit towards the end of the show about educational activities that are going on in our community, both with students and outside of the schools. What I'd like to get from you right now is a sense of what is it like to be an AIDS patient? What is it like on a day-to-day basis to be living with either AIDS or HIV positive?
Well, there's a big difference between someone just being HIV infected who can be healthy for a number of years, anywhere from 2 years to 15 plus years. And for those people who are healthy, they live just like all of us and they look like all of us, so they don't look any different, they don't feel any different, they're perfectly healthy. When someone actually gets diagnosed with AIDS, however, and starts developing symptoms and their T cell count goes below 200, then they're looking at basically someone who has to take a lot of medications, who has to go to the doctor a lot. Usually they lose a considerable amount of weight. They may get some skin conditions, etc. But basically their whole day is based around their medical condition a lot of times. And a lot of people cannot keep jobs because it takes up so much of the time. Even with these new protease inhibitors and other drugs that are out there that have given people much more of a normal lifestyle after getting diagnosed with AIDS, it still is very difficult to monitor those drugs and make sure that the side effects aren't making them even sicker than they were before, and that's one of the problems with the drugs since they're so heavy duty.
What do you have a sense in Nevada County or in Truckee in the Tahoe area of how many people may be HIV positive and not know it?
Well, that's a very difficult question. The assumption is that for every case of AIDS that we see, that there's probably 10 cases of people who are HIV infected. So I can't exactly give you the numbers, but we do know that the majority of people do not get tested for HIV and therefore do not know that they have HIV.
Which brings up also an important part. During the breaks on this show, we are displaying on the screen telephone numbers where people can go to get confidential testing.
Right.
And if a person is not sexually active and fears they may be HIV positive, is there any impetus or incentive for them to go get tested if they aren't sexually active at this point? Would they want to know?
Well, I think there are people, if they're concerned, should definitely get tested. I mean, it's really sort of a personal choice. If just because someone is not sexually active at present doesn't mean that they may not have even shared tattooing needles before when they were younger, or shot up maybe once at a party or something and were sexually active without using condoms prior to this time of being abstinent or not having any sexual intercourse. And if they've had partners who they didn't know or didn't know their risk, then that's certainly a choice in terms of getting tested. Okay. If it's been more than 6 months from a time of exposure, then the test is highly accurate, more than 99% accurate. So we call that the window period. And so once someone is past that point, then they don't have to worry if they get a negative result. They don't have to keep on getting tested.
But they do have to continue practicing safe
Absolutely.
sex or safer sex.
Right, or finding a partner who is not infected and both getting tested, and then they don't have to be wrapped in latex the rest of their lives either. So,
that's appealing.
Yes, not every, well, you know, condoms, you know, there's that latex barrier, and it really does make a difference. And so it's not something that we say everyone has to do forever unless they know for sure they're infected, and if they don't know the status of their partner.
Okay. What are some of the high-risk lifestyles, if you will? Who are some of the people that are more at risk of contracting HIV?
Well, certainly injection drug users who share needles, and we certainly tell them to use bleach in between or go to a needle exchange place. People who are not using condoms and are having multiple partners, or if someone is with only one partner and do not know the status of that partner, then they are putting themselves at risk. We know that most women who are getting infected presently have not known that their partner was infected and have gotten infected through their one partner that they are presently with.
What are we seeing in terms of numbers in our community for the types of infection? Are we seeing mostly heterosexual contact, homosexual contact? Do we keep statistics on how people are contracting
We are keeping the statistics. They're very small. The numbers are fairly small, so they're not really releasing them at this particular point. But we still know that men who have sex with men with unprotected sex and injection drug users and their sexual partners are most at risk. Also, we know that teens are at very high risk, and their numbers are increasing twofold every 14 months.
Okay. We'll be talking about the teens and more about community awareness when we come back. Tomiko, thank you very much for joining us on this segment of the show. And
Thanks.
we will be back after a brief break. Welcome back to Truckee Talks. We're talking about AIDS awareness in our community, and with me are Tomiko Aya, Melissa Tidwell, and Kate Oldberg. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. We just have a few minutes left in the show, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in the student peer counseling. We spoke about that a bit in the beginning of the show with Kate, and Tomiko, you touched on that. Melissa, I know that you're involved in this as a student peer counselor.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Do you go out and speak with some of the students in the school?
Yeah, we go from classroom to classroom. This year we went to the 9th graders and the 11th graders. And just Friday they went and talked to the 8th graders down at the middle school. And we talked to them about the risks and the dangers of unprotected sex. And we've studied a lot with some companies and stuff about what to do, like how to talk to them, how to approach it. And so that's what we've been doing.
That's great. Has that been a good experience for you? Have you learned a lot?
Yeah, I've learned a lot that I didn't know about. But
Okay.
when I was younger, they touched on it, and so I knew some stuff.
A little bit about it. I was out of school by the time AIDS really came on the scene, so I don't envy you being brought up in a culture with AIDS, but it's good that you have the information available to you. Tomiko, speak a little bit, if you can, about what's going on in our community specific to education. I know that you're working with the students. What about educating people that are out of school?
Well, we're trying to hit the service clubs, the fire departments, the police departments, and as I said before, going more into the Latino community and the community at large, hopefully eventually doing what we call like bar outreach and just even putting some posters up so that people, and maybe even condom machines eventually, just so people are just more aware of using condoms, using what we call protection, and keeping it in mind when they're out there.
Okay. Are you coming up against any kind of resistance, or are people pretty open to hearing about this?
I think it sort of varies. I think most people want to know more information, and other people are, we've at least 12 years into the epidemic, and some people are pretty tired about it and feel like we've done all we can, and now we've got these great drugs, and so why do we need to worry? So that's a bit of the downside of the great drugs that are out there, because people feel like there's a cure and it's not really a cure yet.
That's an interesting thing and an important one to hit on. There have been some new, as you mentioned earlier, the protease inhibitors, but those are not a cure, and a cure for AIDS has not been found. And it's important for people to understand that this is still a highly communicable disease, not through casual contact, but certainly it is one that anybody is susceptible to if they engage in any kind of behavior that could lead to that. Kate, if you will, talk a little bit more about what's going on with the kids in the schools and what are some future activities that you have planned.
Well, what's happening in the schools now pretty much is that I've been working a lot with the North Tahoe High School students, and the program in Truckee really blossomed this year. And that was due a lot to Lori Martin and her role in stepping in there, and also due to the Placer County Office of Education grant that we received. So of course, if you have a little more money to work with, it's a lot easier. What we're trying to do next year at North Tahoe High is we're going to be doing hopefully the high school quilt program, which is through the NAMES project, AIDS Memorial Quilt, and bringing the quilt up to the high school and doing a lot of things surrounding that. And we'd like to get some of the local service clubs involved in that. So we're going to be doing some presentations with them. In Truckee, they're such great songwriters there. I'm so proud of that song. And they're going on a little bit different line from the quilt. They'll probably be involved in that also. But really trying to get the word out through we'd really like to do a big assembly at their school that we weren't really able to do this year. And also going down into the middle school. They're great educators that we have over in Truckee, and we'd like to get them out more and get the community involved there too.
There may be a lot more going on in the schools than the rest of the community is aware of, and that's one of the reasons I asked about other outreach. It'd be good to go out to the other service organizations and get more word out there. Tamiko, now you're working with the students as well as working with the Community Action Network?
Right. Well, as part of the Community Action Network, we are definitely working with the kids because it's such an integral part of AIDS education and prevention is the teens. And so I've gone out a lot with them to do the 101 and help them with some of the exercises and just help out all together.
Now, a student that becomes a peer counselor can probably anticipate some kind of questions or some tough road with other students who may be afraid that they have already contracted HIV. Do you train the peer counselors, the student counselors, on how to deal with other kids on these issues?
Actually, we haven't started to do that yet, although we do know that they get a lot of questions from the other kids, and we encourage that. They've seen the HIV-infected speakers and heard them talk and sort of have some sense of what that's all about. So I think they probably do have some sense of how to do the counseling with students and also help them feel more open as peers to come to them when they're scared or had a slip or, you know, how do they get tested? Can they go with them? So they're definitely set up for that.
And do you feel confident in that, Melissa? Would you second
Yeah,
that?
well, I just, this year I haven't had very many questions brought to me, but I think it's just because in Truckee it just kind of got started. But I think next year it'll be a lot more open and a lot more people will come to us.
Okay, all right. Well, it's good to hear that this kind of activity is going on, and again, the education is so critical. Do you have some telephone numbers, Kate, or contacts if people want to find out more about it? One of the things I think that's difficult is that people don't know how to discuss this in their families and how to bring it up with their students. Are there people that they can contact to get more information on HIV or AIDS awareness?
Well, the numbers that you've been rolling on the screen there, the Placer County Health Department and the Nevada County Health Department are the testing programs. The HIV Community Action Network phone number is always a good one.
Which is 582-7613.
582-7613. And people can get more information there on AIDS awareness, on just statistics maybe, so that they can talk about this with their families, with their kids.
And we really encourage that kind of discussion. A lot of what's happened with the peer education is that the kids have gone home and with a lot of their parents being single parents these days, presented it to their parents. And I've had parents come up to me and say, you know, wow, you really impressed my children, and they're educating me now as well.
Okay. Yeah, so the education flows both ways.
Right,
It isn't just to
exactly.
the kids, so that's good to hear. This has been a difficult topic for many, many people to bring up, and I certainly appreciate all three of you being here. I especially appreciate the work that you're doing in the community because it is so critical, and people really need to know this information and be armed to prevent further spread of AIDS and HIV. I wish I could say that we'll never do a show on HIV again, but if the call is there, we'll do it. Unfortunately, people need more information than they're getting, and our guests are here today to show you that, in fact, information is available. Please do go out there, discuss this with your families, discuss this with your neighbors, and thank you for joining us today on Truckee Talks.